Hello, and welcome back to Growing and Showing, a podcast where I discuss useful tools to build our best lives together. Today, I want to talk about how we can stop feeling guilty for rest. And I'm sure that this is a pretty common experience because a lot of people I talk to can relate. So, today, I want to discuss how a lot of us get this feeling after we took some rest, whether it was deliberate or not deliberate, that once you feel better and you feel rested, you start feeling guilty because now you feel like you could have done more when actually it's just the rest that is actually working, right? Because now that you've rested, you're feeling better, which is the goal of rest. But unfortunately, you feel guilt for it because you think that you could have done more. And what we want to learn today is to switch that into thinking, well, luckily I feel better after giving myself time to rest, because that's the whole point. So first I want to discuss why rest is important, because while a lot of us probably know that rest is something that we should give ourselves every now and then, it's not as common as sleep. I think nowadays sleep is very much starting to become a priority for a lot of people, while as rest is still not quite there yet, I think, in society. I don't know, maybe you feel differently about this, but that's what I have experienced so far. So rest, based on science, rest is super important because it actually helps our brain function. So there's like lots of studies on this, that when you rest, it boosts your memory, your focus, your creativity, so basically your overall life. So that's a really good reason, right? And then it also has shown to reduce stress and cortisol levels, which is something that a lot of people struggle with at the moment, is feeling too stressed and having high cortisol levels. So rest actually reduces that, which can also mean that you might feel less anxious, less fatigued, and it can even help with like stress-induced weight gain and other illnesses that are related to stress, like chronic illnesses and stuff like that. Rest also aids physical recovery, and I think that makes a lot of sense, because if you look at rest as recovery from a physical activity, then it is more common and more understood, right? Because a lot of people that go to the gym or do other kind of workouts, they actually know that rest is a part of that. Like, you have to rest your muscles so that they can actually grow in a healthy way. Otherwise, you're going to overdo it and there's not going to be any improvement, and you're probably going to injure yourself as well. So rest is important for that. So look at rest also as part of physical recovery, which I think already connects rest to a more positive outlook rather than what we think rest is. Another scientific reason for why you should take rest seriously is sleep, right? Because sleep is actually us resting as well. So a type of rest is sleep, and we know that sleep plays a critical role for a lot of parts in our health, especially also our mental health. And then there's also this proof that rest actually improves our decision making and self-control. And if you think about that, when you're tired and you have to make a decision and you just can't do it, so you need to wait until the morning. So it's basically that feeling, right? So rest can help you with these choices that you have to make on a daily basis, because if you're fatigued, whether it's mentally or physically, that can impair your decision making ability, which is part of your prefrontal cortex, which is where the decision making happens in your brain. So that's a lot of reasons why you should take rest seriously. And I also want to talk really quickly about brain waves, because especially in today's day and age, we are a lot in I think it is the beta waves, which is where we are very alert and active, like we're thinking actively and we're problem solving. So we're often stuck in that kind of brainwave length, which can be good to an extent. But if you're in that state prolonged, so if you have prolonged beta activity without rest, it can lead to mental fatigue, anxiety, and eventually even burnout and other health problems and mental health problems. So we want to make sure that we have rest, because that takes us out of the beta waves to alpha waves, which are a little bit slower. And that's the waves that are associated with relaxation, calmness, but you're still awake. So this kind of wavelength is associated with mental clarity and stress reduction, as well as creativity. So we want to make sure that this is like a nice balance, and hence why rest could be important as well. Okay, so that is the science behind why you should care about rest. So now that we've established our care, let's get into the reasons why you might be feeling guilty when you give yourself rest, or even just thinking about rest can be enough for some people. Okay, so why might one feel guilty when thinking of resting? Okay, so I've got a couple of reasons. Number one, maybe it is due to comparing yourself and other external influences, especially if you think about our culture. It is very normal that we associate hard work and consistent work, and the harder and the longer we work, with success. So they are in correlation together. So the more you work, the more success you get. And obviously, since rest is the opposite of work, that would equal failure, right? So it could be a cultural issue. It could also be comparing yourself in general, especially since we have so much influence from other people in our daily lives 24/7, like at our hands with social media. And especially on social media, you only see work. Like, there's not many people that post about them sleeping or recovering or resting. It is always input, productivity. So you associate that, you compare yourself to that, and you compare your whole life to that, and you think, well, others are constantly working, so I have to do that as well. And why can't I do that, right? So you're like starting to spiral and question your whole life, because you're like, well, I want to be like that too, because I want to be successful like them. So it could be comparison, external influences. And then number two, it could be that you are tying your self-worth to your productivity. So you think the more productive I am, the more worthy I am, which they don't have to be tied to one another. Your productivity does not equal your worth, but it might be that you feel like that at the moment. So that means that you might be telling yourself, if I'm not achieving, if I'm not producing something, then I am wasting my time. So that could be another reason why. And then number three is because of perfectionism. You might feel guilty for rest because you are trying to be perfect. You're trying to be the best that you can be. And while that is good to an extent, once it tips over into that perfectionist state, you are making it so hard on yourself, because you are making up goals for yourself and schedules for yourself that are not sustainable. You're not going to be able to achieve them and produce as much as you would want to, and as perfectly as you would want to, sustainably. It might work for a little bit, maybe for a day, maybe for a week, maybe for a year, but at some point you're going to burn out from that, because you can't live up to that extremely high expectation of perfectionism. It's never going to be good enough, because it's never going to be perfect, because we're all human, so we make mistakes. So it might be perfectionism. And then the other reason that I think we might feel guilty for rest is that we have this really core belief, this deep belief that we probably even grew up with, that rest has to be earned. So we believe that, we were never taught to value rest, just the rest itself, but we were taught to look at it as a luxury, as something that is like a reward, something that needs to be earned. And we keep thinking, well, I haven't done enough to deserve rest yet. I need to do more. And I think a really good example of that, even though the word rest isn't in this, but back to my example of sleep, and how sleep nowadays is looked at as more important than it used to. I remember growing up, I would hear sentences like, you can sleep when you're dead. And I think we really look at that with rest in a similar way as well, because we think, well, we can rest when we're old, we can rest when we can't physically move anymore or can't mentally understand and remember anymore, because right now is the time to live, right now is the time to get everything done and achieve and produce. And like I said, but we fail to understand that rest is a part of that, because like I said, it's not going to be sustainable without rest. So rest isn't counterproductive, it is part of our productivity. But so those are the 4 reasons that I think are the main problems and issues of why we feel guilty when we rest, or even just thinking of rest. Like, rest is something that we have to feel guilty about. And yeah, so that's really sad. But I think those are the reasons, and I think it helps us to understand and question it a little bit more. So now that we know the issue at hand, I want to talk about some solutions. So I've come up with 3 steps of how to overcome the guilt of rest. Step 1 is that I want you to start scheduling rest. So look into your diary, look into your calendar, and actively choose to schedule in and plan for rest. And this might seem super dumb and like a waste of time. So what I advise you to do is that you start small. So maybe even just schedule in a 5-minute break where you're just going to rest. And also I want you to identify what kind of rest you need. Do you need mental rest? Do you need physical rest? Do you need social rest? Like maybe you've been very social, so you need some alone time, so there's different types of rest. So what kind of rest do you need? And start scheduling that in. Start small and then start building up once you feel more comfortable with actually planning in rest. And so the reason why I think you should schedule in the rest is because then it starts to become part of your productivity, because in your calendar you have all of your productive things, right? Like you have all of the tasks that you need to get done and all of the things you need to do, all of the work. And once rest is part of that as well, then it is not counterproductive anymore. It is part of your productive day, because rest is part of doing your best. It's not a break from it. It's just like sleep, just like physical recovery after working out. Rest equals restoring your energy so you can keep being productive. So it is literally the part of sustainability for your productivity, right? And also scheduling in the rest will probably make it feel more valid, because you've scheduled it in for yourself. So once you see, oh, now I need to rest, that's like, oh, it's valid because that's a task that I need to get done now, or that I get to do, is rest. So it feels valid to do it. And to be honest, rest will happen either way. Rest is gonna come whether it is unexpected or planned. So why not choose to plan ahead proactively rather than letting it build up and then you're going to reach a point where you can't choose to rest anymore. You just have to, because you are burnt out, you can't take it anymore. And then you probably haven't planned in that time that you need to rest, and you're going to have to reschedule other things and other tasks that you were supposed to get done then. And that's when you start feeling guilty, because there was all of these other things that you planned on doing and had to get done, right? So when you plan it, then you are proactively choosing to give rest its well-deserved time, which is going to make everything a little bit less of a hassle. Okay, so that's the first step, is just schedule the rest. And then step 2 is change your self-talk. And obviously this is a reoccurring pattern and reoccurring step in our process of becoming our best self and building our best life. But what I really want you to focus on for this one, with the guilt that you're feeling, is that you move from criticism to kindness. And I think it's really hard, especially if you are a little bit in a low, or you're not feeling very worthy, especially if you're feeling guilty about the rest. You probably don't feel too good about yourself. But A really good tip, I think, is to, instead of talking to yourself like you usually do, imagine you're talking to your best friend, or you're talking to your child, or you're talking to your dog, to someone that you feel a lot of kindness and love for. And imagine you're talking to yourself the way you would talk to that person or that animal, with a lot more kindness rather than criticism, aka with compassion and empathy and understanding, because that will allow you to soothe all of these emotions that you are feeling. You're going to acknowledge them, you're going to become aware of them and acknowledge them and be like, this is okay. I am feeling guilty right now, but it's okay, rather than putting yourself down even further, right? So notice your guilt without the judgment is basically the goal. And then you can respond as if you were comforting a friend, rather than someone that does everything wrong. And so, for example, instead of saying, I am being lazy, you can change that to, well, I'm allowed to rest, and my body or my mind or both need this right now. That's that. So start noticing and becoming aware of the negative self-talk, and then try to acknowledge it, then try to reword it, and maybe even start questioning it. So that's the kind of like the extra step to it. And you can do that by gently challenging those internal messages. So it's really good that you start rewording it, but then maybe try to challenge them as well. So say, if you think, well, rest equals failure, you're going to become aware of that. You're going to notice it. You're going to acknowledge it. Oh, I think that rest equals failure. And then you can start challenging that by asking yourself, well, where did I get this from? Whose voice is this? What would I tell a friend who felt this way? What's the actual consequence of resting for 30 minutes? So start questioning it. Also, if you feel like I haven't earned it and stuff like that, right? So become aware of it, acknowledge it, and then question it and think, is it really that bad though? And approach it with kindness, really. So that's step 2, change your self-talk. And now step 3 is, I really like this one, and I've started doing this as well, and it really helps. It is track it. So start tracking your rest, whether it's in your diary or like a logbook or just in your mind, but it would be really good to write it down in some shape or form. It doesn't have to be much, but log your rest. Write down, well, today I rested for 20 minutes, and then afterwards I felt blah blah blah. So write down how you felt, and usually it's probably like a positive, so it's gonna, at the end, you're gonna see like a lot of the benefits that rest has given you, this scheduled rest has given you, because you've probably written down, well, today I rested for 5 minutes and I felt calmer afterwards. Today I rested for 10 minutes and I felt less irritable. And yesterday I actually decided to rest for, or this afternoon I decided to rest for the whole afternoon, and I felt so much clearer, like everything felt so much clearer. Or maybe I felt less sore. So try and focus on these positives. Of course, you might still feel this guilt, especially at the start, but I'm sure there's something positive that you can take from it. And this starts building up and adding on. And if you've written it down, you can go back and then see all of these positives and benefits that you are feeling from the rest. And then it's going to confirm the idea that rest is important and is helping you become better and living a better life. So it's going to confirm these new pathways that you're trying to wire in your brain, because at the moment you're not really very sold on rest. So we want to sell it. We want to realize that it's good and helpful and useful and important, necessary, right? It's necessary, not an option. Yeah, so those are the 3. Schedule rest, change your self-talk, well, kind self-talk, and track your rest and how you feel about it. And that's it for today. I don't have more. I just hope that you stop feeling guilty about resting. And of course, sometimes we do still feel guilty, but awareness is the first step. And then you can go and follow all of the other steps, and hopefully you'll feel less guilty soon, especially the scheduling. I think the scheduling is going to be a lifesaver. Like, it's going to change everything. It's going to change your whole life. Yeah, let me know if you try it, and let me know how you feel. I would love to know, because this has really helped me. So it would be, I wonder if it would help someone else, and I'm sure it would. Yes, that's it for today. I'll see you again next time. Bye.